Hey everyone, Cat Kings here again for another fantastic and exciting video. And today I want to talk about delayed gratification. How can we do it? What do we know about it? What are the risk factors, etc.? Now, whether you're trying to quit smoking, quit drinking, or quit impulse buying, there's a few things you have to know. One of my favorite sayings is if you go to the barber shop every day, eventually you're going to get a haircut. But what exactly does that saying mean? Well, we can look at a very simple test that'll help explain that, and it's called the marshmallow test. In the marshmallow test, they took a group of 3-year-olds, I believe it was, and the people who were conducting the experiment gave the 3-year-olds a marshmallow. And very simply, to put, this is your marshmallow. You can do with it as you please. It's yours to eat if you want. I'm going to leave the room for a few minutes, and if I come back and you still have the marshmallow, I'll give you another one. The kids who ate the marshmallow ended up staring at the marshmallow and eventually succumbed to their own lack of willpower. The kids who didn't eat the marshmallow would stare at their shoes, stare at the wall, put their head in their arms, and make sure they could do anything to not focus on the marshmallow. Now, what does this say? It says at any age, we recognize our lack of ability to control ourselves. If something's in front of us, there's a very good chance that we are going to use it at one point. It might be a day, a month, a year, hell, 10 years from now. But eventually we will use that thing. We'll have a bad day, our temptation will get to us, and we're going to use it. Which is why I'm very much so not a fan of people having a pack of cigarettes next to them for comfort when they smoke, or an alcohol bottle next to them. Now you could argue there are anomalies and exceptions to that rule, but generally, out of sight, out of mind. It sounds like a very basic concept, but people don't consider it very often. They don't look at things and they end up subconsciously, without even thinking about it, repeating the same habits they did to get themselves into that situation in the first place. Which is very important why we should write a diary. We should document ourselves and understand ourselves. Look back on what we did and didn't do to accomplish something, and what did or didn't happen that led us to failure. Because the truth is, we oftentimes don't remember things nearly as much as we would like to think. Which is why eyewitness testimonies are so inaccurate, and which is why we repeat a number that we are given multiple times over and over again to remember it. We are not going to remember the details as accurately as we'd like to think without studying it and memorizing it by repeatedly looking at it. And writing it down is a good point to consider, which is why students take notes and stuff, because it's far more effective that way than just trying to remember it. It's important to recognize that we are humans and we are flawed and we will make mistakes. We'll have ups and downs, and it's important to forgive ourselves. But it's also important to be realistic about it. One of the best things you can do if you're not in this situation but you're trying to help a friend is, instead of criticizing or reminding them, oh, smoking's bad or all drinking's bad, it could kill you, they already know that. All that's going to do is make them feel shittier or irritated. And what do people do when they feel shitty or irritated? Well, they make shittier, irrational decisions to make themselves feel better. What we should do, and it's a great thing with coaching too, right? To help to build self-confidence in somebody so that way they believe in themselves. And that way they can carry that self-confidence and that unwavering doubt into their decision making and their actions. Is, instead of criticizing them for the things they do wrong, wait until they do something exceptional. Wait until they do something good and compliment them on it. Remind them how proud you are of them. Remind them of how happy and exalted you are. How excited, how thrilled you are of the things they've done right. Acknowledge those things. Our brain's predisposition, I think, is 4 times more likely to remember negative things than it is to remember the positive things. We just naturally find the negatives and hold on to those a lot more than positive things. Which is why it's important, even more so now than ever, to not criticize somebody, but instead look for those positive things and constantly hammer it in. Give them genuine compliments. Because when people feel good, they will tend to do good. Now, with that being said, I want to challenge you all to do something today, right here and right now. I want you to write 5 genuine good things about yourself, why you like these things, why they matter to you, and what you're going to do to continue doing these things. I want you to write down your temptations. I want you to write down why they happen and figure out the causes and scenarios. And it's not just as simple as I smoke because I'm stressed. It could be a smell reminds me of something, or an activity reminds me of something, or a certain, or a certain environment makes me do this, right? Look at those risk factors and try to minimize them as much as possible. If you left anything out, please let me know down in the comments below. And as always, I hope you have a fantastic day. And remember, stay strong. Hey, what up everybody, Catkins here for another fantastic exciting video. Today I want to talk about how we love ourselves, even at our worst times. Now, it should be noted that sometimes I'm going to repeat ideas in my videos because points can be interchanged for every topic. And so it's important to keep that in mind. We tend to hold ourselves to a higher standard a lot of times, especially those who have such self-esteem issues, than we do other people. We're readily willing to criticize ourselves and look at the negative shit we've done. And that can be in part because the brain is 4 times more attuned at remembering negative events than it is at remembering positive events. We might remember the time when we made a fool of ourselves when we were at a party, or maybe we said the wrong thing to somebody we were close to. We might sit there and wonder if we were, why we were such a bad partner, why we were so toxic to somebody, or why any other number of things. And then completely forget about all the good we've done. All the obstacles we've come through. All the adversity we faced. All the times we thought we couldn't make it through something. All the times we thought, this is it, I'm done for. I just don't see myself recovering from this. Whether it be emotionally, physically, or financially. We might feel like we never lived up to our expectations or those of our predecessors. We might feel like we're always going to repeat the same shit and we're never going to change. Maybe we have bad habits that we constantly do. And it makes sense, right? But there's a few ways to handle this. First way is a very obvious one, but it goes with a lot of things. Practice, practice, practice. If you want to be a better person, you've got to practice it. How do you think some of the greatest athletes get so good at what they're doing? How do you think some of the best wrestlers, some of the best boxers get to the position they're in? You could argue they were born with it, natural talent or the genetics, but that's only a part of it. The most important thing is their mindset, their mental willpower, and their dedication and drive to face failure, to face adversity. I remember when I was looking at Daniel Cormier, for example, is a good example. I remember when he lost to John Jones and when he lost to Stipe and how emotional he gets over those situations because they mean so much to him. And he could have easily just gave up right there and said, I don't have it in me anymore. I'm done for. Or when he lost his daughter, for example. That could have broke him. That could have destroyed him. But he kept doing what he did, and he did it in her memory. And he tried and got better than ever. He didn't let all these tremendous, horrific setbacks that could have just destroyed him, destroy him. He rose to the occasion and showed what makes us the top predator, what makes us the top species in this whole goddamn hierarchy. And that is our ability to adapt and change. Now it's both literally and physically. Over evolution, we've changed a lot, and we've adapted to our environment and become smarter, become stronger, etc. But you could look at it metaphorically too. I was in a really bad situation one time. When I was in Middletown, I lived with this guy named David. And I usually try to give examples from personal life experiences because it might help establish some sort of connection, right? Because I've seen a lot of weird stuff in my life. I've been through a lot of bad stuff. And so I can usually relate. I try to pick topics I can relate to and give an example for, right? I'm not saying my life was the worst. By far, I'm not saying that. So don't ever get it wrong. Don't ever get it twisted. When I lived in Middletown, I ended up one day getting a gun to my head. This dude tells me, I'm going to kill you and take all your shit. He pulls back the trigger. And I remember in an instant, I just had a flood of emotions. And I could have gave up right then. I thought this is going to be it, right? I just thought, he woke me up at 5 something in the morning, right with a gun to my head. But all of a sudden, I thought about my future with Jacob. I thought about college. I thought about what I was going to do 40, 50 years from now. It just all came flooding to me. And I fought back. And here I am today, and I still got my computer. I lost my phone. But I kept my computer and everything else. Ran them out. And throughout this whole time, David would continue to hang out with people. And continue to put us in dangerous situations. And we would continue to get our shit stolen. And I didn't want to be there another goddamn day. I'd lost all will to live. I'd lost all joy, all happiness. And I had become almost defeated. And I thought I'd never get out of there. I just didn't have the strength to do it on my own. Which leads me to my next point. You need to rely on others. You can't do it alone. So I turned to my grandparents. I said, I need to get the fuck out of here. I can't be here another goddamn day. Surround yourself with good people, good friends. Because you never know when you'll need them and when they'll need you. I've made a separate video on this that I'll upload. It'll talk about how to spot a real friend, how to spot a real good person. But in the meantime, we'll keep it simple, and I'll just tell you that they saved my life, both metaphorically and literally. They got me out of a dangerous situation around dangerous people where I would not be able to see anything but static progress in the form of $100, $130 paychecks at most every single week. I think it was it's actually every 2 weeks we got paid, so which was terrible, right? The other thing is you have to be the person that that your younger self needed. If you were in a bad situation, you need to be the person that your younger self needed. We're our own worst critic, obviously, which is a terrible thing, but I understand and I get it. But you have to treat yourself like you would treat a good friend, the people you love the most, right? And you have to do the things for yourself that you would do for other people. You know, how often do we give advice that's really sounding really good, but we don't take it ourselves, right? How often do we tell somebody, don't be in that relationship, or don't drink alcohol like that, or don't smoke like that, it's bad for you, right? But then we ourselves don't follow that same rule of thumb, right? We either give ourselves leeway without even realizing it, or we beat ourselves up over things when we'd readily forgive other people for that same thing, and understand that our actions, just a few bad moments here and there, do not make up this collective sum of who we are as a person. You need to be your own best friend, and you need to be somebody that you would like hanging out with. If I left out anything or forgot anything, please let me know down in the comments below. This is Cow King signing off, and as always, have a fantastic day. Hey, what up everybody? Cow King's here for another fantastic video, and today I want to talk to you about what is marriage, what does it mean, why do we get married, etc., etc. So I was looking up an interesting statistic about divorce. And over the course of the lifelong probability of divorce between couples, you're looking at about 40 to 50% with variables such as conflicting issues over race, religion, etc., right? Personal values, whether it be social circles, family, disapproval, whatever. But the point is there's a lot to it that can either decrease or increase the problem. Now, why does that information matter so much? Well, there's a problem I have with the mindset of today's, I guess, it's not really just today's people, right? But all throughout history, right? Whether it be, I don't know if you'd say it's more gradual now or decreasing, but one issue that's persistent, right, is the issue that people go into marriage thinking that if it doesn't work out, I can just divorce. So what the hell is the point of a vow, right? Why do you make a marriage vow if that's your mindset? A lot of people, when they face difficult challenges, they sort of look for something less difficult, right? Like what I mean is, okay, so when people are faced with a difficult subject or something, a difficult course, they might drop out, right? Or they might look for something less difficult to do in the meantime, right? That will still reward them with dopamine. Marriage is one of the hardest challenges because it's a lifelong challenge. And we've all been with somebody, right? And when we get with that person, we might even see them as flawless almost, right? God-like. Because we really haven't gotten to know them well more often than not, right? A lot of relationships can happen fast and they can happen hard, right? We get that puppy dog love, right? Whether it be a crush or whatever. But when we get with somebody, we don't really know their inner workings all that well. Now, obviously, there's exceptions in this world, but I'm just saying as a general rule of thumb, typically that's what's going on. And then over the course of that relationship, they might start saying or doing weird shit. And we wonder, well, what the fuck was that about? When maybe, they had a past relationship where they got beat, or maybe, when you raise your voice because you're passionate about something, they talk on a topic, they might think you're about to scream at them, right? And we can see this in dogs on a much simpler level, right? Where a dog will have a shitty situation, maybe it'll have a bad owner or something, right? And that dog will become vicious and violent and start attacking and biting people. And a lot of times we could just write off with the one simple answer of, well, just a violent mutt, right? Or we say, pit bulls are predisposition to violence. Now, I'm not no dog expert, right? But what I'm saying is you can't just write off everything as black and white. That's dangerous thinking. That can lead to a number of catastrophic things. And if you think you know everything, then how can you learn anything? When in reality, almost every single time across the board, that dog became vicious for a number of reasons. And oftentimes it's not his fault. He might have had a shitty owner, neglectful, abusive, any number of things. And now that dog is just scared. And it can't trust a goddamn person. Because every time it sees a hand reaching out to it, it thinks back to those memories. It's associated that with nothing but pain and suffering. That's the way a lot of us are with certain things too. You might have grew up in a bad neighborhood, around bad people. You might be a product of your environment, and maybe in the most tragic sense. You know, we start a lot of things, right? But we never really see them through, right? It's hard enough when you start a 1 week project. You ever start a YouTube video that, you know, requires a lot of effort and you just give up on it? Maybe you start a 1 month project. Maybe a 1 year, 10 year project, right? We're like so obsessed with the idea of getting, you know, a dopamine release gratification right then and there, that we don't remember to delay gratification, right? We don't remember that a lot of things that are really good for us take time and effort. I mean, the internet is kind of built like that, right? We swap back and forth between mindlessly scrolling through Facebook or playing games and, you know, switching off from one game to another. Or maybe we go and watch a YouTube video and then we see, oh, this one looks cool, you know? And then we switch over even though we haven't finished it. You know, we have so many YouTube videos that we haven't finished or watched through, right? Or maybe you're a smoker, right? And instead of waiting 2 hours, which you very well easily could do, right? You get to the 50-minute, hour and a half minute mark, right? And you're so damn close, right? But you just think, oh, fuck, I don't want to wait another second. What's the harm it can do? Let me go ahead and do it right now. If you're just going to get married and you want things to be unpredictable, you think, you know, fuck it, I don't want to spend my whole life with this person. Why are you getting married? You could just date for the rest of your life. For the rest of your life, you could just date. Say fuck it. And it's even worse if you have kids too, right? Because now if you have kids, you can break that family apart. Now, obviously, if your partner's a monster or something like that, right, or it's just not working out, you know, you can't predict these things, right? Unfortunately, sometimes, you know, we just get in bad circumstances and divorce is the only option. But if it's just because, oh, well, it wasn't what I was hoping, it wasn't some fairy tale story that I saw in Hollywood, you're an asshole. Marriage is supposed to be sort of like a safeguard, right? A safety net. You can find reliable security in knowing that no matter how bad either of you get, you're gonna work on things, and you know that the other person's gonna work with you because they have to stay with you. It's a hell of a commitment, but that's why it's called a vow. Till death do us part, for better or worse, right? Like I said, there's exceptions to it, right? I'm not saying divorce all across the board is bad. I'm just saying in general, if you get into marriage, that's the biggest commitment you can make. That's a lifelong project, and it never really ends. You know, Jordan Peterson said something really good that I really liked. And he said something along the lines of, "I know you're messed up. Me too. So let's make this work," or something like that. And I really like that. You know, the other problem that happens, back to my previous point of seeing people as better, right, is sometimes we might expect them to be at their best all the time. Let me give you an example. I had a relationship at one point. This was quite a ways back. But every time I dated this girl named Cheyenne Clark, I don't hate her. I don't even have anything against her at this point, right? I've learned to move beyond that because I don't want to be a prisoner of my own past. But I'm just going to use her as an example. Every time things got bad, every time I didn't act exactly every time I wasn't tip-top shape, she'd leave, she'd look for another guy or something, right? A lot of people are chasing that initial high in a relationship, right? That surge of dopamine, that, it's the next big thing, right? It's like if a game releases, right? And then a month later, another game releases, and so you just sort of drop that game, right? And you move on to the next thing. Why the hell do you put all that time and all them hours and all that money into that game if you're just going to do that to it and then just come back to it once you got bored of that game? it's like some people, right, with Cheyenne, right, if I had a bad day or an off day, instead of wanting to fix the problem, right, that was too draining, right? She just didn't have the energy, right? She had so much of her own weight, her own luggage that she was carrying that she never dealt with. She never had any room for mine. Meanwhile, she didn't see that I was carrying more than I could possibly do. And I was about to break my fucking back because I was trying to lift a weight too heavy for my own mental well-being. And I'm not saying Cheyenne is a bad person for any of that, right? I've been a toxic person in a relationship too, and I wasn't perfect in that relationship either. I made a lot of mistakes too. But I never gave up. 9 times she broke up with me. And 9 times, every time she wanted to come back, I took her in just like that. What I'm saying, to put it very simply, is you need to manage your expectations of reality. You need to understand that your partner's damaged and so are you. And that you're a unit, you're a team. And things aren't always going to be sunshine and rainbows. A relationship's progress isn't just straight linear, right? It's not that you just move straight ahead and nothing but, sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes you might have a bump that staggers you, right? A lot of people understand that, right? It might halt your progress. But a lot of people don't understand that all of a sudden you get thrown a curveball and then you make a U-turn and you're going the opposite direction. And you gotta correct yourself, steer back in the right direction, turn back around. And people get discouraged with that. They start jumping all sorts of conclusions. Oh, I knew this was coming. It's, my friends warned me about this. All sorts of things, right? And that's another thing, right? I've seen people who go to their friends, for example, and they could have good friends or bad friends, right? Who knows? But friends aren't experts on the matter. They don't know the inner workings of your relationship, right? They only know your perspective, right? And I made a video addressing this a little bit ago in detail, right? So if you want to check that out, feel free to. But to leave a little bit of a cliff note here, a summary of that point was that friends aren't experts on the inner workings of a person. And even if they were, they don't know the specific dynamic of what's going on. They only have your word to go off of and then their interpretation of your words. And there's a lot of personal bias involved too, right? Like if they had something happen to them, like let's say, old Billy Bob came home one day and he yelled, right? That's not a good thing, right? But maybe he had a really shitty day, and so he did a really shitty thing, right? So, your friend Jenny says, well, that's the first step to abuse. He's probably going to hit you. It happened to me, right? Personal bias, right? She based it on her own experiences and made a haphazard, oversimplified conclusion based off that. But the thing is, despite any bad things we've done, right? We're not the sum. That doesn't make up the sum of who we are, right? We have a chance at redemption. We have a chance at bettering ourselves, right? We have a chance to be a better man. If you met me 4 or 5 years ago today, you didn't meet me. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, it's very simple. I've went through so many experiences and had so much time to educate myself and train myself and grow up and have my brain developed and mature, mature through both genetically, biologically, right, and emotionally and through my environments, right, that I was able to overcome these adversities, these obstacles, these hurdles, and come out the other side, right? Sometimes we get so caught up in the tunnel, right? Sometimes it seems like the tunnel is so long that all it just seems like is more tunnel. We forget that there has to be an end point to that. The other problem is a lot of people say, I did everything I could, or I tried my best. But I think that's kind of like a crock of horse shit, right? Because now some people really do do their best, right? But a surprising majority of people don't. And I really strongly stand by that. This is more of a personal opinion, but based off a few things that I've seen, researched, and witnessed and experienced myself. The first thing being that a lot of people argue, and instead of really listening to the person, they're only hearing them, right? They're arguing to win more than anything else, right? They feel this way. They feel so adamantly and strong. They don't take a second to stop and consider, I might be wrong. Are my feelings reasonable? Should I have said it in this tone? Should I have done it differently, right? They don't have critical thinking and self-reflect on, maybe I should have done that different, right? They sort of repeat a cycle, right? And even if they have short-term change, right, they just repeat the cycle of abuse, right? Where it's essentially something like, I can't remember it perfectly, but it's like the honeymoon phase, right? And then there's the tension building up, and then there's the abuse, whether it be physically or emotionally, you know? And then it leads back around, right? And it just keeps going and going and going. You know, and also, when it gets to a certain point, right, we might start seeing our partner as like a heartless bastard or a monster, right? When there's very few people who you could really call monsters. We don't stop to consider that maybe they're just scared of being hurt again. Maybe I did something repeatedly that now they're just expecting, and they've just lost their hope. You know, we don't consider that there's a person behind that anger, right? That we don't consider there's a person behind that despair. We just look at them and think, wow, how could they do that, right? How can they be so callous and cold? Instead of really knowing the reason, right? We have this knee-jerk reaction, and we feel so offended that we don't take a moment to consider that they might be feeling the exact same way. How often do we really, spend time with our partner? Like, do we really do everything we can, right? Like I asked previously. Are we spending time? Are we regularly going out to dinners? Are we regularly watching a movie together? Are we regularly just having a talk? Not even about anything. It doesn't have to be cutesy or anything, but just a talk, following up weekly to check on the state of the house, check on the state of them, check on the state of the kids, check on all these different little things that we constantly want to update, right? What happens to a game when it doesn't get updated for so long? Well, the bugs never get fixed. And possibly it gets even worse because it's not getting updated. So, if there's no feedback, if there's no updates, how do you know there's a problem? Even if you know there's a problem, what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to leave it in a buggy, shitty state? Or are you going to fix it, see the potential in what it could be, and add more things to it, while at the same time fixing the pre-existing things? Thank you all for watching. If I left anything out, please let me know. And until next time, I hope you have a fantastic day. I love you guys. Hey, what up everybody? Catkins here for another fantastic, exciting video. I'm just chilling at work. I recently picked up quite a few hours. For the next 8-9 days, I was working 8-hour shifts. I'm fucking happy about that. This job is amazing. I love it. I do a bunch of maintenance work, pretty much, just another work for janitorial work. Super easy. Love the people. They're great. And they're awesome. Now, I want to add a little tidbit. Just so you know, always frame the people you talk to in positive connotations. Avoid gossip. And there's a few reasons for that. The first and foremost reason is what you practice and preach becomes your mindset. Now, what do I mean? Well, there's the first thing, right? What you say and do becomes a connection, and it becomes stronger and stronger. For example, if somebody smokes one time, the connection is already formed. It might be a really weak one, but the connection is formed. That's why people, that's why we advocate so strongly not to do heroin or meth. Not even once, right? Because once you do it once, especially the stronger habits, your chances of doing it significantly increase every time you do it. That's the first reason, right? And this is dopamine kick. Jordan Peterson does a really good explanation of it. I'd highly recommend checking it out. The second thing is, we tend to associate what we say about other people subconsciously with the person that's saying it, right? So if somebody's, gossips a lot and they talk shit about their coworkers all the time, I don't know, we've all experienced it, right? If you have a super chatty mouth coworker, she could be completely right, or he could be completely right, whatever. He, him, her, they, it, whatever. I don't care, right? But if we have a super chatty coworker and they talk very negative all the time about other people, they could be completely right, but that's dismissive of the point, right? You start to get tired of that bullshit, right? And all you can hear is a toxic individual, right? You start to associate those feelings with them. You start to think, oh man, all they are is negative, all they are is just hateful, right? And that's the other thing, right? And last but not least, back to the point of, the connections of how you don't practice what you don't want to become. It affects your mindset. It affects your mood, right? If you ever, like, one of the biggest things, like, that, I don't know if anybody's ever taken the time to look at this, right? But some of the most shared stories on Facebook are the headlines of, like, tragic shit, hateful shit, right? We're predispositioned to naturally go towards that. That's what we share more often than not on Facebook, right? It's just, like, these headliner posts about child died, or, this man raped somebody, right? And a lot of times people don't even read the articles, right? They just see that and share it. They don't look into it if it's fake or not. They don't look for the details. They just see this shocking, eye-grabbing thing, and they just share it out of nowhere, right? And like I said, statistically speaking, that's what people share more often than not. So we have a predisposition to that. I remember a time when I was in foster care, and I hated every minute of it, right? At first, I really did. I couldn't get over the fact that I was taken from my family. I couldn't get over the fact that, I was with these strangers I didn't know, right? And I couldn't get over the fact that these strangers had done a lot of fucked up shit, right? One of the biggest examples, right, was I went to this birthday party, I guess you call it, with Cedric and my brother Donovan. We went to Little Caesars, and I remember getting back. They pulled a really, really mean, I wouldn't even call it a prank, they just were hateful, right? And they said, yeah, we know you were smoking, which never had smoked at that point, right? Cigarette never touched my mouth at that point. Nothing, not pot, cigarettes, nothing. And they just found it so funny, and I remember them making me cry and get angry and stuff. But that's exactly what they wanted, right? Yes, I was upset. Yes, I was mad. Yes, I could talk shit about them. But it didn't benefit me, right? It gave me nothing, and it gave anybody I was around nothing, right? All I did at the very most, right, was, obviously everybody needs a vent, right? I'm not saying don't vent, or I'm not advocating against it, right? Or be heartless, or, suppress your emotions. Everybody needs to talk once in a while. I'm just saying, like, when I consistently did this, right, I was draining other people. I made my problems other people's problems, right? You know what I mean? And that's the biggest issue, right, bro? Like, you gotta understand that, right? So, like, yeah, we all have issues, right? We all have struggles in our life, and it's definitely, like, it can definitely be a big issue, right? But the thing is, it's very self-serving. It's like short-term gratification, right? It's right there instantly. You get to relieve some initial stress. But when you're constantly bitching, when you're constantly complaining about something, right? Like, it doesn't solve the problem, right? It does not solve the problem. Just sitting there and talking shit and talking trash doesn't do anything but, like, poison the atmosphere. And I found, like, later on, right, that I was kind of grateful for, everything I went through. And not because, I wanted it to happen, or, I was a changed person or anything. Of course, I fucking hated that time in foster care. But for better or for worse, it made me the person I am, right? It gave me a lot of experiences, right? And, like, I was able to deal with a lot harsher things going forward afterwards, right? I had went through some severe adversity, and I was able to come out the other side. Now, for a lot, I'm not speaking for everybody, right? But for me personally, right, I took that experience and I used it to approach other challenges in my life, right? Because that was one of the hardest things for me, right? I had no idea. I was always in my comfort zone, right? I never was, I never pushed myself out of that, right? And I never went and sought difficult challenges. But after that, right, it was so difficult, and I had to deal with that hell for 2 years that I felt like I could take on anything. And just the mere idea of being back with my family was good enough. I no longer felt like a spoiled brat. I just literally changed, right? And like I said, this is my personal experience, right? But I was able to take on so many more challenges. I was able to do so much more. And I was able to just find that motivation, that driving factor. I got along with my family, right? We all got along pretty well. Now, some of them, a good amount of them, right, have fallen back into their same patterns, and that sucks, right? But as far as me personally, I didn't. I was able to keep my relationships with my family, my friends and stuff, and I was able to take what I learned there, and I used that instead of following that same pattern of abuse I experienced in foster care, right? I used that, and I just remember telling myself, I never want to be like that. I never want to be in that situation again. And I'm going to make sure, right, that I do better so I never have to deal with that again. Because there's a lot of things you can get back in life that you can't get back time wasted. As always, feel free to post your questions, comments, concerns. If I left out anything, forgot anything, let me know. And until next time, I hope you all do well. God bless, and goodbye.